Okay, is this the best podcast? That depends. Do you like conspiracies, mystery, anomaly, unexplained phenomenon, supernatural stories, and aliens? Well, then maybe it's the best, but it's hard to say. Today I'll be talking about this podcast. It's called Mysterious Universe. It's not the biggest podcast in the world by any means, but it's definitely not the smallest. It's unique in a way, and it is very entertaining. Before I get into this, I will say I have no affiliation with these people. I'm not being paid. I don't know these people at all. I just listen to the podcast sometimes, and it's very entertaining. And I just felt like making a video on it. So here's the tagline. The tagline reads, always interesting, often hilarious. Join hosts Aaron Wright and Benjamin Grundy as they investigate the latest in futurology, weird science, consciousness research, alternative history, cryptozoology, UFOs, and new age absurdity. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about here. It's very fun and silly. The account of events that are taking place are described in a very entertaining way. The hosts balance off each other very nicely and they have great chemistry. They're also Australian, so their accents are soothing and nice to listen to, I will say. They've been doing this for years and years and years, and I've been a fan of theirs for a while. I've listened to probably, 80% of their podcasts. I went back and listened to pretty much every podcast I could find on their website, including their older ones, which you can tell that there is a noticeable and gradual increase in quality as the years go by. Just like any content creator, there's going to be an increase in quality as the time goes. I will let you know exactly when the peak is, though, of their content, when it starts to really come into its own. Their earlier stuff leans heavily into UFO territory, with the bulk of conversation being that a lot of times is UFOs and cryptozoology. They used to have guests on a lot. It used to be a little bit more investigative, I think. In a way, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say that, but it is interesting still, even though it is a little less polished. Eventually, we get into some variety with some very intriguing, more outlandish stories. They often have vague titles and they often have very good art, though. I will say their art is pretty fucking good and fun. Now, being conspiracy, cryptozoology, etc. podcasts, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. Obviously, this isn't going to be like the news. You're not going to take all of this shit as facts, because it's not. It's just, like second, third, fourth hand accounts of stories that people hear on the internet. So you basically got to take everything as a story and not as something that actually happened canonical, like in actuality. I don't really go into this thinking, oh, I'm gonna learn something new today. I really go into it as if it was as if I was sitting around a campfire with some friends bullshitting, saying some crazy shit that we heard one guy tell us one time. That's kind of how I see it. It's very fun though, and if you look at it like that, it makes it a lot of fun. There are a few podcasts that are actually pretty interesting and maybe less fantastical, but it's hard to say because of everything that's mixed in. It's hard to tell how legitimate some of these stories are, because you get some podcasts about Bigfoot eating peanut butter, and you get others about like China and the horrific Uyghur camps that they could have in China. And so there's very much like juxtaposition depending on the episode you're listening to. They always try to keep it light though, but there are some more serious podcast episodes for sure. With that being said, I'll summarize a couple of my favorite episodes. In general, my favorite episodes involved past life regressions. Those are always great. Alien abduction accounts. Those are fun to listen to. People who claim to have jumped through time accidentally. There's just random shit that they go into sometimes. There's this one where this guy took a bunch of ketamine or something and thought he was a pillow for like 5 years. He like lived a whole life as a pillow. Like he was getting laid on by this person, and then he'd be like, all he could see was this one side of a wall next to a window because he couldn't move because he's just a pillow or something like that. It was a funny episode, to say the least. And I love the fantastical, crazy stories that they tell. One of the first ones I listened to, probably the first one that I listened to, was about this guy who visited this remote tribe in the middle of the jungle, basically. These people have never seen civilization before. They have never even seen the ocean. They have not really seen any technology. He spoke a language very close to what they were speaking. And so he went into he just found these people. I believe he spent years befriending these people, and eventually convinced one of the shaman people who became his friend to come back with him to a town in civilization. And after some convincing, he did, and he was very quiet and overwhelmed, to say the least. Never have seen any lights or TVs or stoves or even the ocean again. And I can't remember if this guy asked the shaman at that moment or if he asked him later, but the shaman essentially described being told by his god or by the nature itself about whales and certain fish and coral reefs and all of these things that he wouldn't have known about and wouldn't have had access to. And it was super interesting because it seems like he did get some supernatural knowledge in some way. And I think what it could have been is, you know, assuming this story is real, which who the fuck knows, probably not, because it's on the internet, right? Say this was real, maybe they got passed on knowledge from generation to generation to generation, and, you know, far enough back their ancestors, they did come from somewhere else, or they did explore the ocean, or they did do something else. And so this is just knowledge that was passed down potentially. Maybe it wasn't anything supernatural, if that was the case. But anyways, this episode was really good. I don't know, it was just a really good episode. I'm obviously leaving a lot of stuff out because it's a long podcast. It's like an hour or something, but they do have an extension that goes on for another hour, and I do recommend that part as well. But it is an amazing episode. All in all, one of my favorites. I believe it's called The Knowing Jungle. If you want to find it and listen to it, that is a really good one. Past Life Passions is also a really good one. The Alcoholic Leprechaun was a good one. Again, the one where the guy took a bunch of ketamine and thought he was a sheet or a pillow or something. That was a great one. There's one about people being stalked by their doppelgangers, which is insane. Like they walk into a room and somebody says, "Oh, you're back already." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Oh, you just left like 5 minutes ago." And he's like, "No, I wasn't here today." Like, what do you mean? That was a super good episode. There's one about like the infamous heart attack gun. There's one where there's a fox spirit that would go around seducing like leaders throughout Asia. Just the way they tell these stories makes them so fun and entertaining. Those are some really good ones though. I don't have the names for all of them. I can't remember off the top of my head. There is this super silly one where a girl meets a guy and she's pretty sure that he is an alien. Like they go to Burger King and he has no idea what any of the food is. He orders like 10 burgers and eats them all somehow. The way he speaks is super strange. He doesn't seem to know like what any normal thing is. He eventually disappears after asking her if she wants to come with him, I think. That one is called Pleiadian Double Whopper. So again, I skimmed over a lot of information, a lot of great moments, but I'm just trying to get the point across. Oh my god, don't get me started on Planet Gawk Adventures. That one is ridiculous too. This dude basically gets kidnapped by aliens and gets taken to different planets. And this is his like account of this. And so I don't know how they find these stories, but they do find these stories. I don't know if I honestly don't know how they find these stories, but needless to say, they're probably not very credible, wherever they get these stories from, but they are very entertaining. That is something that they definitely are. He's missing for like 15 years or something crazy, and he comes back all of a sudden. The bottom line is there is some definite gold in these podcasts. I think the early 20s, like the seasons, they have different seasons, and about the early 20s is where it starts to get really good, in my opinion. Season, 21, 22 and beyond, up to recently, are very good. That's also where they start to name the episodes, and that's a big reason why I recommend that, is because it's easier to see which one is which. Those start at about 2019 or so. One sad thing is you have to pay for a lot of their content. I get it. You got to make your money somehow. It is a subscription, so if you pay for the monthly or the yearly, then you get like you basically get all the content, right? They have free episodes, and the free episodes are usually very good. However, they do leave on some extreme cliffhangers for the second part of the episode that is paid, but some of them get the whole story across in the free version, which is nice. It's also largely a listening podcast. They put show notes to websites or articles or videos or photos, but there is no video, at least until now. They do have video now where they do make podcasts with their videos. So as they make the podcast and do the audio version, they also have a video version, which is very nice. I've wanted this for very long, and it's nice to actually see them as they're telling the stories. It adds another dynamic to it, and it's very entertaining. And that's really all I wanted to say about this. I do recommend starting with The Knowing Jungle. That is the one, that's the recommendation that I'm giving. Most of it is free, and the free part of it is very good. Each episode is about an hour long, with the extension being like another hour basically. And they do have another concurrent podcast that is for members only, that is another hour each week. If you really love their content, you can check that out too. Or if you have access to it, then there you go. Episode features usually 2 stories, one per host. Ben and Aaron each have their own story usually. Sometimes they have a really big story and they take up like the whole podcast, but that's fine. They banner a lot, so they're both very involved. So yeah, you do get additional content if you subscribe to their website or whatever. Speaking of subscriptions, are you subscribed to my channel by any chance? And would you please, if you're not? Anyways, that's what I want to talk about. I think it's very good. I think it's very fun. At least watch that one episode and see if you like it. If not, my bad. But if you do, show them some support and let them know who sent you. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.